The Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion was the game to beat back in 2006. It secured countless votes from journalists and a very large chunk of the gaming populace as their coveted Game of the Year. Skyrim now presents itself as the fifth entry into the Elder Scrolls world and introduces dragons into the fray as a cornerstone of its story and as one of its major gameplay devices. This highly anticipated title comes with a lot of hype, but does it live up to its name, or does it merely just fall into oblivion? The story in Skyrim picks up roughly 200 years after the previous game. Plunged into the midst of a civil war after the assassination of the High King at the hands of the rebellious Stormcloaks, you begin aboard an Imperial carriage transporting you to the fort of Helgen, where your execution is minutes away from being played out. No, not your Helgen, yours has 2 H's in it, plus it's on another planet. Moments before the curtain is about to fall, a dragon inexplicably arrives to wreak havoc upon the unsuspecting inhabitants. These initial events propel the larger story forward in which an unknown party is resurrecting a legion of fallen dragons in a bid to take over the reins of humanity. Accordingly, this places you in a position of valiant saviour, as your mysterious ability to wield dragon powers seem to hold the only key to defeating the dragon horde before the human race falls to their dominion. The story itself is interesting, if a bit heavy on myth, but hooks your attention and for the most part is a great tale. Segments of the main quest, however, do place the player in a position of having to acquire items in side quests in order to have a better chance of succeeding in battle. This can become distracting if you want to remain on the beaten path, but it's minor to say the least. The story intends for you to tread on this main path with pre-scripted beginning and ending events, but where it deviates for each player is what you choose to do in between. Your critical choices in many of the story quests are more than enough to reshape your individual journey, but interactions with other characters, your choice to obey or disobey the law, and reaping the rewards of the much-hyped infinite side quest system all play a part. As a result, the entire world evolves around you in many different ways to clever effect that do affect the main story in some capacity. This essentially makes Skyrim enormously replayable, since every player will unlikely experience the game in exactly the same way. Skyrim feels and plays exactly like the other games in the series before it, with the standard series format of switching between first and third person, using melee weapons, and fast travelling between areas. Delving deeper, you fast learn for yourself that the level of depth has been increased to arguably stand as the utmost pinnacle of the franchise. The most apparent improvement can literally be found at the opening frame, with a huge increase in graphical detail and open world environments. Soon after, you'll find yourself in the open world where you can flex your combat muscles against wildlife dangers utilising a tighter combat system, which allows you to map an item into each hand. No longer are you bound to a unique race with a unique skill set. Instead, you select a preferred race and upgrade it the way you choose through a clever skill tree system modelled after bodies of constellations. It's here where you'll make many of your important choices in upgrading your strength, health, magic, and stamina through points awarded to you when you rank up to the next level. It all leads to some very interesting combinations at your own picking. For example, you can increase your healing power and attacking strength, allowing you to use one-handed weapons while healing or using fire. Magic, weapons, and shields can all be wielded together, and even dual spellcasting can be mapped to your character that can be upgraded accordingly through an increased focus on magic upgrades if you choose to do so. It all goes right down to the most basic of actions, including lockpicking, pickpocketing, and general navigation throughout the world of Skyrim. It's this ability to make the experience even more your own that sets Skyrim apart from previous Elder Scrolls games and makes it one of the most flexible games in its entire genre. Though the main quest reaches the finish line at the 30-hour mark, the amount of side quests and general exploration throughout the game mean you can be expected to be playing for well beyond that. Story and side quests work in the same way. You find your destination, you talk to your target, and then you proceed with the quest at hand. The delineation in the side quests, however, is that they can be found anywhere in the smallest capacity, and will rapidly fill up your quest journal if you take on one too many. This can be overwhelming at times, considering some side quests are just as long as story quests, but if you stick with them, they can earn you special rewards that can turn the tide in battle. The world of Skyrim is enormous and populated with towns, villages, bandit camps, hidden caverns, swamps, snowy peaks, blizzard-covered countrysides, and the list just goes on and on. If you can't find the motivation to discover everything on foot, you can buy a horse if you have the coin, or rent a carriage and fast travel between settlements. Highly enthusiastic fans of the series can also enjoy reading the hundreds of books found throughout the world that detail the mythology behind Skyrim, and even present the occasional quest. Just about every inhabitant in Skyrim can be spoken to and comes loaded with a dialogue tree system that allows you to converse based on how you want to play your character and your overall experience. It's nowhere near the reactive, highly intricate levels of Mass Effect, but it plays its role the way it should and does nothing wrong to damage the experience. These inhabitants also vary greatly in physical attributes and each have their own personality, history, and honourable code. Much like Oblivion, the law system returns to govern the world of Skyrim and punish you for your crimes and misdemeanours if you're reckless enough to get caught. You might be fortunate in bribing your way out of these moments, but either way, expect bounties on your head to pile up and jail time to teach you the error of your ways, and the occasional death. By far the biggest addition to the series are the dragons. Dragons are the driving force behind Skyrim and can be found practically everywhere in the world, while also serving as a basis for both story progression and as an untapped reservoir of powerful upgrades and priceless treasures. If you defeat a dragon in the story or out in the open world, you'll absorb its soul and increase the power of your dragon abilities, such as the aerial speed dash or the force call. Bethesda also have put a meticulous level of detail into the dragons themselves. Depending on their elemental abilities and anatomical design, each will behave differently and seldom use identical tactics when on the assault. Best of all is that the townspeople will aid you in a fight with a dragon when it invades their home turf, alleviating some of the pressure to dispose of these big boys all by yourself. When alone, these confrontations might border on the tough side for some players, but it's all about strategy when engaging in a fight to the death with these guys. Expect plenty of trial and error that can get frustrating, but at the end of the day is superseded by the adrenaline rush of every fight and the joy of a well-fought victory. Skyrim is top to bottom a beautiful game lovingly designed by Bethesda. The new creation engine allows the world to come alive at every turn, from big polygon hitters like the dragons and the cities, to even just the detail in the soil, the leaves and the weather cycle. Facial animations have drastically improved since the days of Oblivion, making the once stiff inhabitants into more realistic, relatable people that help you sympathise with or even dislike completely. The soundtrack is a work of orchestral mastery, lending the pitch-perfect tone to the events that play out on screen. No matter if it's an epic dragon fight or just a quiet horse ride through the outskirts of Riverwood, the music keeps you immersed in the gameplay and might even get stuck in your head for days to come. Now, this isn't to say that all is perfect in the world of Skyrim. When given their time to shine, issues in the presentation do present themselves quite noticeably. Voice acting that frequently sounds like the same person, town inns that seem to have all been ripped from the same architect's portfolio, and the usual out-of-the-box glitches that you'll randomly find in your exploring all rear their ugly head during the game. Some of these range from clipping and texture pop-in to just plain weird moments of character models not appearing and wild animals getting airborne or stuck in the environment. Another notable glitch on the console versions are the intermittent freezes during large-scale combat and also when accessing menu screens that can take up to 10 seconds at a time to load up. It's fair to say that to be truly good, it must come with its own demons. But given the sheer volume of positives that abound in Skyrim, all these problems fast become irrelevant. When all is said and done, Skyrim emerges from the tail end of the gaming season as one of the year's brightest stars. Detail is paramount in Skyrim, and Bethesda seems to have adopted it as their development philosophy. The world of Tamriel has never had a more realised creation than it has here, and Skyrim firmly cements itself as the best game in the Elder Scrolls series by far. While the pace of the game might be a drag for some players, and minor glitches are more frequent than we'd hoped, Bethesda have perfected an already strong formula. From satisfying combat, varied side quests, dense mythological detail, right down to the beautiful landscapes, the quality of Skyrim is on display constantly. If you find yourself still walking the tightrope, allow it to be put simply. Skyrim is unmissable. If you guys pick up the game, be prepared to marvel.